Welcome back to AM Northwest. We want to let you know that the next segment contains topics that may be too sensitive for some viewers. It was one of the most watched investigative programs on TV. Now, a new documentary pulls back the curtain on the complicated legacy of Dateline's To Catch a Predator.
Some people watching this may feel like you have something to answer for. That this genre of TV you've helped make doesn't deter criminals or get to the bottom of their crimes. It just helps us enjoy it. We make TV, and we point cameras at something, and the trauma continues. What do you say to that?
We welcome the director of Predators, Emmy and Peabody Award winner, David Osit. David, thank you for joining us this morning. And I have to tell you, it's really a thought-provoking documentary. What sparked your interest in To Catch a Predator?
Yeah, I watched To Catch a Predator in college, the way a lot of people did, with this sort of mix of fascination and horror. It was
Right.
it was funny at times. It was all sorts of things, and no one had ever seen anything like it before. And then, years later, I kind of forgot about it, but there are some people who hadn't forgotten about it. And they had created, an online fandom community for the show that for the last 20 years has been collecting archival footage and material and raw material that had never been seen before from the show. And I watched some of it, and I had a really complex reaction to some of these things versus what I remembered the show as being. The show is kind of funny, it's pithy. These men kind of rinse and repeat. They show up and they get arrested and kind of get embarrassed. But watching the raw footage, I would find myself feeling bad for them at times. I'd find myself feeling complicated about what they'd done. I'd read a chat log and feel disgusted, and then watch raw footage and feel kind of sad for them again. And I didn't know what to think about how I felt. And I remember thinking, well, what's the difference between these two things? Why does one make me feel something and one doesn't? And the way I make movies is I think I just liked spending a whole movie just asking a question that I don't know the answer to. And it was, well, how does To Catch a Predator make us feel?
Did you ever think, and it looks like you did in the film, think, wow, I'm feeling sorry for a predator?
Yeah, I found myself shocked. I myself was a victim of child
Right.
abuse when I was younger, and there were times when I was very surprised by that feeling. But I think it really comes from the fact that at the end of the day, like everybody is a human being. And is someone always as awful as the worst thing they've ever done? I didn't know the answer, but what I think I started to realize is, if we can decide that we can treat one kind of group of people as just like they're not human beings anymore, we can do that to other people. And we see that throughout history, and we see that all the time. And this film is not asking you to feel bad for child predators. It's not defending child predators. It's asking, how do we treat people at the bottom of our society? How do we treat people? And what happens when what happens to them becomes entertainment for us? Is that something that I am excited about? I have questions about it. That's what the film goes into.
It's interesting that you admit that you were a victim of child sexual abuse as well, because it seems like it comes out of in a moment in the film. Did you intend to bring that up? I am also a victim of child sexual abuse, so I understand. And having watched that show when it was on, I kind of felt like vindication.
Sure, I understand. I wasn't even conscious of what had happened to me when I was watching the show. It took years of understanding, which is very common for survivors of child
Sure.
sexual abuse, to find out kind of later in life what happened. And I'm sure a part of me did feel the same way. And there's other people who feel that way that are in my film, and we have conversations about that. It was never my plan to put that into the film, but I realized that having that element of my story in the movie kind of gives you a sense as an audience of being able to say, wow, like there's all sorts of different ways that we exist as human beings. And just because someone has suffered in life doesn't mean that they want necessarily to see other people suffer. And then there are some people who do, and there's all sorts of different kinds of ways that we can feel like we're healing. My issue again comes back to more a question of what happens when what happened to me becomes entertainment for you.
Right.
And that's really what the film is occupied with.
A shocking moment is when one predator, alleged predator, kills himself, and then that becomes the entertainment. That's particularly horrifying.
it's one of those moments where the line shifts, yeah, of what we think is acceptable for this type of entertainment to do. This was a moment, yeah, where a man in Texas decided to take his own life because he saw the Dateline cameras and police outside of his door. And this is something where, it brings up some questions about, what's acceptable when it comes to making this type of show where you have law enforcement and journalism working together for the sake of creating entertainment.
It, can we solve this problem? I think Chris Hansen tries to say that the idea is you're catching so many guys, and he is working with law enforcement. They get arrested, and it seems like there's an endless supply of these predators coming and going. And I mean, do you think there's a way to stop these predators?
I do think there's a way to stop these predators, but it's not going to come from a TV show that's designed to make us enjoy them being caught.
Okay.
The only real person who wins in that particular situation, I believe, is the audience. We
Right.
get to just enjoy the show that was on 20 years ago. But times have changed. We now have online predator hunting groups, which are very popular, and the film goes into that as well. Some of these segments of predator hunting that happen now, like a popular one will get as many views as a viral clip from SNL. This is a very popular form of entertainment
And
now
it's
all
also
over the world.
it's extremely disturbing how they go about catching supposed predators, because they, like, one guy, Skeet, imitates Chris Hansen.
Some of them imitate Chris Hansen. Some of them are just try to film themselves being as violent as they can be with the
Yeah.
predators, and some of the more popular ones. There's all sorts of different ways to do it. Now, let me be clear. I believe that all these people, including Chris Hansen, believe that what they're doing is right. I think we all believe that what we're doing is right. Sometimes that's the issue, is that we all believe that what we're doing is the right thing. And then it's hard to
Sure.
talk to people about it, especially with an issue like this, where it's just such a line in the sand, a binary of there's nothing more evil than being a child predator. So does that mean that those human beings are not human beings? Basically, for a lot of people. And that's when you start to be able to see us being able to turn what happens to those people into entertainment.
Chris Hansen watched your film. What do you think of it?
He liked it. I think he appreciated it. I'm very, very sincere in this movie. I'm not trying to embarrass anybody. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to punch down, as they say. I'm genuinely interested in why everybody believes in what they believe and why they do what they do, which is what the show also tried to be back when it first aired. I'm really asking questions that are basically along the lines of, why do you do what you do? Why are you interested in what you're interested in? And then I'm just trying to find the ways in which we have things in common, and what kind of world we live in together.
It's interesting when you point out too that the police are working in connection with the film crew, and it seems like the police are more putting on a show than they are concerned in the crime itself.
There are certain issues and certain times when you certainly can get that impression. I
Right.
think it's, again, a sort of gray area. There's several different investigations in the show, and different police departments and different interactions and different cases. But I think that it invites some questions that are hard to answer about, well, what is the police getting out of some of these things at times? There are certain situations where these things are conducted in jurisdictions where the sheriff is an elected official. Is it very popular to have a successful child sex sting in your jurisdiction? That's something that you can use if you run for re-election. Of course it is. So
Yeah.
maybe you look away at times if you have doubts about what's happening. Conjecture. A lot of this is conjecture, and a lot of this is just questions. And it's questions that I hadn't seen put to film before, and that's what was interesting to me.
And interesting too that you talked to the decoys, the actors who played decoys. I thought that was fascinating as well.
That's right. I thought about it because we were all the same age
Yeah.
when the show was filmed. I was 18, 19 when the show was on TV, and that's how old these decoys were too. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I wonder what their relationship is with the show, and how it mirrors or might mirror mine as we've all gotten older, and now we're all in our mid-30s and have families and so on. And so that was one of the reasons I spoke to them first, and that was fascinating.
Absolutely. We want to tell our viewers Predators is streaming now on Paramount Plus. David Osit, thank you so much. Excellent work.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. We'll be right back with more AM Northwest. Don't go away.